Hi everyone, how's it going? I've got these circles under my eyes at the moment. These are usually pre-diabetic symptoms. I was hitting the kidneys this morning as I was laying down, so that could be the cause of that. Also, I've been crying quite a bit, not because there's anything really wrong, but it's just one of those things, You go through that shit about every month. For those who know, right? But other than that, I'm good. I wanted to talk to you guys about a video that I got from my good sis on Facebook, who's another TI. She shared the link from a person called Gangstalking. I can't remember the name of it. But it's somebody on YouTube that shared a video of former federal prosecutor Trey Gowdy interrogating one Kelli Burriesci. Kelli Burriesci is the deputy undersecretary for the Office of Strategy, Policy and Plans. And considering that Gowdy left office or left his job in government in 2019, so he resigned then, considering that he resigned then, it seems like this was an old case or an old whatever it is where, Congress people meet each other. So this particular Congress meeting between Burriesci and Gowdy, this particular exchange was revolved around the gangstalking program. And in America, it's actually a lot more obvious than in the UK about how gangstalking works. Your name is put on a list at the discretion of people who want to put you on there, depending on their connection to government. Like you're put on a list before you've even proven yourself to have done anything. And then what happens is that your life is upended in a counterintelligence bid to provoke you into committing crimes, which I think is basically the foundation of pre-crime, just provoking you into a corner until you either commit a crime or you're sectioned. So you're put on this list, government list in America, and the only way you can get off it is to petition if you believe that you've been put on a list without your knowledge. So basically what Miss Burriesci confessed, right, is that your name can be put on a list without your knowledge. That's A. B, you can only get your name off the list if you can actually prove that your name is on it. The problem with that is that the government can easily omit the information that you're even on there, and they can easily lie if they think you're not on there. Or they can act like your complaints are trivial, like they did with, like the UK did with Dr. Catherine Horton. They basically admitted, yeah, we do have you on here, but it's not important. So as a citizen, a normal citizen, your life can be completely upended. No warning at all. Nothing to kind of warrant it. Your life can be completely upended. Because remember, people have been on those lists since birth. A lot of people have been on those fucking lists since birth. So you don't have to do a goddamn thing for your name to be on the list. You could be chosen out of a lottery. You could be chosen because you have the psychological characteristics that could be a problem to the government. It could literally be anything. One thing that I know for sure is that you get no warning before you're put on that list. And Trey Gowdy, who was the former federal prosecutor who was interrogating Miss Burriesci, he got all the way in her grill about that. So he said, so basically you can subject this person to cruel and unusual punishment if they're on a list. If they've been put on a list and they haven't done anything, you can easily turn around and subject them to cruel and unusual punishment without them having done anything, until they're able to successfully prove that they're on a list and get themselves off it. Once again, that's what happened to Jane Clift over here in the UK. She was put on a list by her local council and she was able to get herself off it and get compensation. But even then, that's one case, and that's a very lucky case where she's concerned. So Trey Gowdy basically got all the weight in this woman's grill. Now, Ms. Burriesci is more likely to be under the Obama government at the time, which would certainly explain why a lot of, it gives credibility to the Republicans' argument about Obama, at least. Because up until now, we've been accusing them of just being racist. Now, I'm going to get into the complexities of that in a second. But the truth of the matter is that from Kelli and Conway talking about camera, microwaves having surveillance cameras in them, and now with Trey Gowdy interrogating the government, the literal government, about subjecting citizens to unlawful torture, it seems like the Trump government were very, very much on the pulse when it came to not only the targeting of citizens through gangstalking, but also the targeting of citizens through mental health as well. So I know someone who used to be a Trump supporter, and I did not understand why they were a Trump supporter. Now I get it. The Trump administration, I cannot believe I'm saying this, but the Trump administration has been actively trying to prevent war with the Russians. They've been actively trying to bring to light all the discussions of the grassroots movements of America. They've tried their level best to bring them to government. Why they're doing it, I'm going to get to it in a minute. Because if you think I'm taking anybody's side, you're wrong. Okay? So this administration and these people have been working very, very hard to hold the government to account about these terrorists. Now, I'm going to get into the reasons why, even in spite of what Trump tried to warn us about, and even in spite of what the likes of Trey Gowdy tried to warn us about, and the likes of Kelli and Conway tried to warn us about, this is the reason why, in spite of what they tried to warn us about, I still don't trust them. The first thing is, right, is that the Republicans have been doing what the Democrats have been failing to do for years, and that's reach grassroots movement. Now, we are at a time where the militarization of culture is becoming more mainstream. In place of Hollywood pedos and Hollywood predators being caught and jailed and held to account, now we have a rising culture of people that believe that only young women are viable, not even young women, that only girls are viable as partners. So in place of these, people who represented, the power of intersectionality being held to account and being jailed, now we've got people on the other side of the curtain wanting child brides. That's A. B, at the same time that all these lists aimed at US citizens are being called into question, police brutality against people of color is getting more rife. Brutality against the queer community, rollbacks of women's rights, rollbacks of LGBTQ rights are happening. So at the same time, these government lists are being called into question. State law is getting more aggressive. And at the same time, people are, our governments are being exposed for baiting Russia into a fight. That's the same time we're literally at war with them. Our culture is getting more militarized by the second. At the same time that these truths are being exposed about gangstalking and Havana syndrome. All of this is happening for a reason. It's because whatever is being exposed about Havana syndrome, about these government lists, about the abuse of psychiatry is being replaced with something else. And speaking of the abuse of psychiatry, the use of punitive psychiatry, as one of my followers pointed out on YouTube, the use of punitive psychiatry is being exposed at around the same time that trans people are being attacked and called mentally disturbed. Do you see the connection here? Do you see what's happening? So because these people, these same people who want to militarize our society even further and create an even bigger military industrial complex, these same people want to call out the military strategy of those who faked intersectionality. They want to call those people out so that they can cover up the even bigger crimes that they want to introduce into society as a whole. That's why I don't trust them. You mean to tell me you're going to turn around and talk about people being put on government lists? There is no way that a disproportionate amount of people on government lists are not black and are not women. There is no way in hell. Now, there are more white people in America than black people in America. Black people in America make up a very small percentage. Okay, so we can be honest about that. But if you think for 1 second that black folk are not disproportionately on those lists, and yet the only people paying attention to those government terrorist lists, like most of those people are white, most of those people are conservative, most of those people are heterosexual or want to be heterosexual, most of those people are Christian. So the ones who are most aware of those lists are the ones who belong to the same group of people who want to militarize our society. This is not coincidence, and this is not by accident. I'm not explaining this very well, but basically the same people who want to militarize our society, that want to make predatory behavior mainstream, now they're exposing the old guard for doing a fraction of what is about to be encouraged in our society. This is exactly what I'm talking about when I said the truth would be revealed at some point, because it has to be. It can't stay the same way forever. At some point, there were just too many people. There were just too many people speaking out about gangstalking, speaking out about Havana syndrome. There were just too many people doing it. The truth had to come out at some point. But of course, the same type of people who have no problem engaging this behavior when it comes to ethnic minorities and when it comes to people of alternate sexualities, the same people who have no problem doing this to intersectional people are the same ones getting in front of the story and exposing it. This is why I don't trust them. This is controlled opposition. Controlled opposition has been there from the get-go. And if you can't see that and you don't want to see that, well, I can't help you with that. All I got to say is get the fuck off my page. Because at the end of the day, we're dealing with reality. The ones who everybody thinks that mainstream society is on the side of right now, we're actually the ones who are most vulnerable to this. To these government lists where people can just be put on them and can't be taken off unless they've proven they've been put on there in the first place. This same system that uses punitive psychiatry to punish anybody who's exposing the truth. The people who are the most vulnerable to this system are the ones that have been actively brainwashed into not believing it's happening. Us. Meanwhile, the same administration that said that white Nazis were very fine people, they're putting every working class white people, they're putting working class white people on game at the same time as subjecting them to an even worse world than the ones they walked away from. All in the name of what? What? I don't trust it. I don't trust it at all. And as for Trey Gowdy is he's a Sunday night host. He's the host of a Sunday night show on on the Fox network. Sunday Night with Trey Gowdy on the Fox network. He's a political pundit, like no doubt Donald Trump wanted to be. I feel like Donald Trump actually wanted to lose the election so that he could have a more sustaining TV career. But no, guess it wasn't to be. That's why I don't trust it. It's not because these people are not wrong. Kelli and Conway said that they were finding ways to increase surveillance, unlawful surveillance against the general public, is basically what she was saying. She wasn't wrong. Trey Gowdy got in Burriesci's grill about these unlawful lists being compiled against people, he was not wrong. But you're talking about the same group of people that are encouraging, the wealth over the family, over equity. They're encouraging a dog eat dog world where young girls are seen as, perfect to be bright. Like, I'm not saying that Trey Gowdy himself thinks this, but there's a pipeline politically. There's a pipeline. And all of those elements, only young girls are suitable to be brides. Women are only good for marriage and babies. Abortion rights being rolled back. LGBTQ plus rights being rolled back. All of that. The same people who are the most vulnerable are the ones that are being brainwashed away from this conversation. All of it is strategic. And the only one being put on game about the way this government works are the ones who want their hatred and their bigotry legitimized. So instead of seeing, people being put on government lists as a sign that our governments are out of fucking control and have been out of fucking control for at least decades, instead of seeing that as a sign that our governments have been out of control, instead, this is seen as a sign that intersectionality is not where it's at. And people can think that I'm playing victim or you're like, history will speak for itself, boo. I don't need your fucking approval on this one. So no, I don't trust it. This exposure, increased exposure of Havana syndrome and gang stalking at the hands of the conservatives, this increasing, exposure of punitive psychiatry at the hands of conservatives, they're the same ones who profit from the military industrial complex, and they're already replacing it with something worse. I know because I'm living through it right now. I'm living through it right now. There are people who are literally being diagnosed with an illness for literally no reason. And those people who are citizens find themselves in these hospitals being drugged up, having social services on their ass, like for no reason at all. These people are being trafficked just so they can get them out of properties and into somewhere else. I know because I'm living it right now and I'm witnessing it. The same people who are responsible for the military industrial complex and want to make money from it are the same people exposing the military industrial complex. Does that make sense to you? What sense would that make unless they were going to replace it with something worse or something more advantageous to them? But anyway, I'll send you the link of the meeting with Trey Gowdy. You'll see what I'm talking about. I'll link the meeting with Trey Gowdy. And I think I might link an article about Kelli and Conway. But yeah, like, I should be celebrating. I should be feeling like, yeah, like gangstalking's finally going to be exposed and we're finally going to get justice. No, we ain't. You mean to tell me the same people that were part of the Nazifying people administration are the ones in charge of exposing my targeting, Black people's targeting in the US? Really, girl? Really? And not even just Black people either, brown people, people are like, and they're more likely to be disproportionately on those lists, by the way, than any other group. Yeah, like the people that are going to be disproportionately on those lists are going to be marginalized. We've already seen it with Black activists who are largely peaceful being treated as the same way, like treated like domestic terrorists, just like the Nazis have proven themselves to be. So the Nazis proved themselves to be domestic terrorists. Whereas Black Lives Matter are just out here being peaceful with deliberate saboteurs being thrown in to derail the protests. They're seen on the same level. Like, really think about it. Really think about what's going on. They're seen on the same fucking level. You got people peacefully protesting to have their rights recognized as the same as everyone else's. And then you got another group of people who want white superiority, and they've made that plain. But both sides are treated like domestic terrorists. And the same people that encourage that and the same people that think that's okay are the same ones that are revealing gang stalking. What does that mean? It means they're getting ready to replace it with something even more oppressive. They're just going to call it a different name. Imagine being in no man's land. Boy, I'm part of a demographic of people who would rather stick their heads in the sand than deal with any of this. I'm part of a demographic of people that would rather stick their hands in the sand than deal with any of this when they're the most fucking vulnerable to it. And then on the other side, I'm privy to some information that, oh Lord. And speaking of psychics as well, psychic and clairsentient people, add them to the list as well. Anyone who's clairsentient or psychic or anything like that, anybody with the God particle, strong and working, they're going to be on the list too, because if they can see through everything, then that doesn't make them good slaves, right? That's why I don't trust this. I don't see Trey Gowdy getting in Burriesci's grill about this unlawful list. I don't see that as a victory because I can already see in front of me what's going on. If you want to gain power in a world like this, you have got to listen to the grassroots movement. You've got to. And the Republicans were smart enough to remember this. The most disenfranchised are the ones that are going to be the most listened to. And in this case, it is white working class people because they feel like they're not being heard. So, reaching out through challenging gang stalking, through challenging punitive psychiatry, through challenging all these harmful things that should be challenged. That's how you wake them up. That's how you get them galvanized. And then all you have to do is attach the increased militarization of our society and the increased punitive psychiatry. All you got to do is just accuse the left of doing right-wing things. That's all you have to do. All you have to do is give that hatred legitimacy by claiming intersectionality is evil and responsible for what's going on. And that's how you get them on board. So I don't trust it. I do not trust it at all. I don't. But people want to celebrate and say that justice is done. No, baby, no. We ain't even close to that yet. And if I were my fellow TIs and I were, and not even just black TIs, but everyone, regardless of what your race is, if you're a targeted individual, watch your back and watch it well. Because when the truth comes out about everything, you will most likely be the first people to be attacked. This world doesn't deal with truth very well. You will most likely be the ones to be attacked. You will most likely be accused of doing things to warrant being on that list when you did nothing to warrant being on that list. When the truth really comes out, you're likely to be attacked more than lauded or compensated for your efforts. Watch your back. Watch your back. In Iran, they did said the same thing after the Shah was overthrown, right? When the Shah was overthrown, after that transitional period, when the new party came in, the new fundamentalist party came in Iran, right? When that happened, they got rid of all the former opponents of the Shah. Just like the new guard When it becomes even more oppressive than the last master, it will get rid of all the oppressors, all the opponents of the last master. Not the racist ones. No, fuck, they wouldn't do that. But they will get rid of the people who are anti-war, who are academic, who use their brains. And most of all, they will get rid of the people who tried to speak out about the old guard. The new guard will get rid of them or try to find ways to get rid of them. Because that's what always fucking happens. Because anybody who was willing to speak out about the old guard, how do you know they're not a threat to your power now? So, anyway, I've got to get on with this edit. I'll leave the links in my video. Once again, shout out to a Facebook friend of mine who has been, who has been posting the link. Shout out to her. She's a real one. Love her to death. But yeah, I'm not celebrating. I'm keeping a very close eye on this. I love you guys, my fellow TIs. Peace and blessings. Mwah. Bye-bye.